I want to talk to you today about why digital outreach matters. When I was younger, my parents planted two churches. The first church they planted was in Idaho, and it was zero to, the first little group that came out, and then it began to thrive, and then crossed that over 100 barrier, and then kept going from there. And eventually, they handed it over, this thriving church, to another pastor, and it's still thriving in the community today, reaching people for Christ. Now, then years later, they planted another church in Arizona, and that church crossed the 100 barrier and then headed off to 200, and it was growing and thriving, but something happened. Same parents, same ministers, same pastors, but something changed, and that was technology. That was what once they had a stream of visitors coming in, they no longer had the visitors anymore. And they ended up, the church began to decline. They eventually couldn't pay the bills of the church, and they had to close the doors. I remember that when my father closed his church, and I remember that their heart for ministry, their passion for souls and teaching the Word of God, and then having to close the doors. Same pastors, two uniquely in different situations. They were able to, one church is thriving, the other one they had to close the doors, but it's the exact same pastors. And that's one of the reasons today that we help churches in the area of technology and media. And I look back that and realize that if we're in a place, and my father actually helps me today as we help churches advance using technology and media to reach more people for Christ. That's one of the reasons, and that's why we got into digital outreach as God shifted us from missions and evangelism into digital outreach, was the impact it makes on people's lives and how you're able to use technology to drive a steady stream of visitors into your church. Now, I often tell the story of Pastor Tim because it was so powerful, him coming to us, wanting help with our digital outreach system as we came in, because he also had closed a church. For over 20 years, he was pastoring a church. It began to decline, and it was no longer advancing. All of the things he was doing before weren't working anymore. It wasn't working. He needed to make a shift. He needed to make a change. And after much prayer, he had to, close the church down. He made the decision, we're closing the church down. And he said, we're going to launch another church. Clint, would you help me with the digital outreach system, what you're doing? So we came in, and everything that we teach, we did all of that from the start. Said, will you trust me? Because Pastor Tim was just struggling with everything from the start. The brand and the website. Well, I like this style. I like that. Well, you're telling me you want to reach this generation. You're telling me you want to reach people, but you're struggling, still have your hands wrapped around the brand and the website and these things. And oftentimes I'll ask pastors, are you willing to go with a design that you don't personally care for to reach the people you're telling me you want to reach, because the visuals are so important. The aesthetics are so important starting the conversation. I learned that on the missions field years ago, that if you can't speak the language of the culture, and that's the, of course, spoken language and the culture and understanding how to reach the people, then you'll never have an opportunity as a missionary to share the gospel with them. And that's how it is visually. So Pastor Tim finally, he's all right. He had brought me in, but then he says, okay, go ahead. Whatever you feel, go for it. Gave us the reins. And so we came in and we built a brand for this new church. We built a website. Then we went out online digitally and reached out online, on social media, on YouTube with ads and organic. And we built the entire actual team. The launch team for the church came digitally. Then from there we took and imagine the day they showed up, all with ads, all with outreach, all with our digital outreach approach. The whole system, man, working. We use the hybrid. We use physical, digital, all of it. And the place was jam-packed in the Northeast. As we tell, over 400 people. And if you know the Northeast, that was a big deal, coming in, going from 0 to 400. And man, the place was jam-packed. The main auditorium, 2 overflow rooms, and they were turning people away in the parking lot. All because of online, reaching people. Same pastor. He didn't make massive change to his theology. He didn't, come down and compromise beliefs, reaching. He was the exact same person teaching, man, just that same passion. But what changed? His methods and how he did it. That's why digital outreach is so important in this generation and reaching people. And then It was powerful because as I was working with them over the months, as we were building the church and getting going, I would go out into the foyer and I would talk to people. Say, how'd you hear about the church? Tell me about your experience, because I like to hear the power of digital outreach and what was touching people, how they came in one after another. Oh yeah, I saw an ad on Facebook. Oh, awesome. I'd mark that in. Yep. Digital outreach. Next one. Yeah. Oh, I saw an ad on YouTube and it spoke to me and said, I got to come out to the church. I want to know more about God. I'm hungry for God. I said, there we go. Digital outreach. Then I met a man by the name of Rodney, and Rodney had told me, he said he was watching actually late at night. He's just watching social media. He's watching videos, and our video popped up and it pulled him in. And he grew up in church and had walked away from God for years, hadn't since a young person been in a church. And he said the ad just drew him in. Digital outreach, the ad drew him into the conversation. So we say that design and the discussion, it grew him into discussion, then into discovery. He came out for a service and he recommitted his life to Christ. Rodney's like, man, I'm going all in. So Rodney's telling me out in the foyer. He says, yes, I recommitted my heart to the Lord. Then in turn, he said, I wanted to bring my wife, who was absolutely unsaved, never been in a church. So and his kids. So then the next Sunday, he brings his wife out. He brings his kids out. His wife gets saved. His kids get saved. Man, they get baptized. Their lives are being radically touched and changed. They're being discipled. And I'm listening to this, and Rodney's saying, yeah, it all started with me getting pulled in, watching that ad. And I realized digital outreach. One of the things that we've seen with pastors and church leaders and those when they go this route at first, there's a lot of wrestling and I'll watch and listen, as it's that, the finances, this and that, and they miss, though they'll spend and allocate lots of money for overseas, for missions and for outreaches, and missing the fact of digital missions. Because what we see is the churches that invest in digital outreach and they invest in reaching out in the areas and invest in this, that what normally happens is the next year they start spending more and they start spending more. And I see pastors, they'll come back to me and they say, I can't go back. I can't go back to how it was before, because they see it continually, people walking through the doors. Yeah, I saw you online, lives being touched, how God is using it. The first time you see God use digital, it's like anything else. You run into anything else you see out here is that I remember, as a young person hearing people like, I got saved watching television and some show come in. And then of course we know in our generation with the internet and online, how powerful this guy can use anything. Digital outreach is so important. We've seen so many lives touch and change. We've seen so many churches. Yes, we've seen them double. Yes, we've seen them triple lives. But the point of it all is that there's people on the other side. There's Rodneys. There's families. I oftentimes remember him specifically and all of the others that I've spoken with, and remember that, man, his life was changed because online God drew him into a church, into a body. Then he gave his life to Christ. Then his wife came to the Lord and his kids came to the Lord. All because of digital outreach. All because a pastor said, I want to invest in reaching people online. So powerful. And that's why Pastor Tim's church went from 0 to 400, and it was all done online. All of those people that showed up at the first service, that showed up in their lives, were impacted, all because of digital outreach. So if you're on the fence, if you're questioning, I'll tell you, yeah, it's a long game. You're going to see some people that are touched immediately. You'll see some growth immediately. You will see it. But one thing I can tell you is that you'll see lives touched and changed. You'll see lives. Now, some of them will walk through your church doors, but some of them will be people that you'll impact, that you'll plant seeds that you may never speak to until you get to heaven. The ROI is worth it. It's all about souls. It's all about people. So that's just a few stories today. Why digital outreach matters. Because I remember when my father closed down that church, and I remember every testimony that we've spoke to. I believe in digital outreach. Yeah, it sends people through the doors of churches, but it touches people and reaches them on their cell phones, right where they're at. Let's go reach them. Let's go touch them. Right where they're at with the gospel, with the good news. There's people all around you in your city, in your state, that need the Lord. We're in challenging times. Thank you for saying yes to the Lord and being in ministry. Now, if you need a partner, you need someone to assist, myself, my team, we'll help you in the journey of an AI digital outreach system. But whether you ever speak to us or not, step out in the digital realm. Use every modern means of communication to touch people and reach people for the Lord. I'm telling you, it's worth it. Lives will be touched and changed.